Okay, welcome back everyone, welcome back. Grab a seat, grab a seats. Welcome back. We're actually bringing forward one of our special guests. And I'm going to be introducing you in a second to Colin Adno, who's actually I've known for a long time. He's actually done a lot of property dealings for me personally when I've bought properties. We're bringing him up earlier on because obviously this time of year, some of our professionals, it's how they can fit in best. What we want to do is get Colin to explain to you about the contract, about the opportunity, and about the process. So the reason I wanted Colin to come along is because in Australia, and Colin will expand on this, is that when you engage a lawyer or solicitor, they work exclusively for you. It just so happens one of the things that we have always done in Property Direct is we've negotiated bulk rates. We're actually here to help you as much as you want to be helped. So in terms of the land, we've negotiated a bulk rate. You can take advantage of it or not. We're actually down the track going to be negotiating not for one house, but for 1,000 houses, so we want a price for that. If you want to opt in on that, you can if you want. We've done the same thing with Colin because we know his skill set, but he exclusively works for whoever engages him, which would be you as a client if you choose to. We've negotiated a very special price. So what I'd like to do is just introduce, his name's Colin Adno, who's been a practicing lawyer since 1987. He's internationally certified in 3 countries to be a lawyer in Australia, New Zealand and South Africa. He's married, has 2 children, a stepchild, a grandson, a dog and a cat. Have I got it all? All right, so ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together. Please make Colin Adno very welcome.
First of all, I wouldn't be doing the legal profession proud if I didn't have some disclaimers to say at the beginning. Us lawyers have to obviously do that. So here goes. I've got 3 general disclaimers. The first one is that the advice or this presentation is not to be construed as legal advice. It's just general advice on the development that we're going to be talking about today. The second thing that I'd like to say is that I am in no way associated with 21st Century. I'm an independent lawyer. As I said, I have my own law firm, and I'm not associated with these guys at all. Having said that, once again, I'm not going to say anything that they want me to say or that the developer wants me to say. I'm going to tell it to you like it is, as an independent lawyer should. And obviously, I'm going to be in this game for many years to come, so I can't do anything to prejudice my practicing certificate. I'm not getting paid for coming here today. I don't get paid for any of the work that I do for 21st Century in their promotions like this. I don't give them a referral fee if they refer clients to me. So the reason is why I'm doing this is because it's obviously practice development. I want you to meet me, to understand who I am, and hopefully if you like me, you'll engage my services as your property or business lawyer. So that's the reason that I'm here. It's practice development. As Stephen said, they've also negotiated a bulk discount for this kind of work, and obviously if you took this contract to another lawyer, you would look at paying a lot more, maybe 2 or 3 times more for one lot of land purchased than what we've negotiated. Obviously, we have to give a bulk discount. In addition, because of the unique nature of the kind of deals that we look at, you'll find that the average corner solicitor doesn't really have the experience or the knowledge, and so they're going to spend a lot of time looking at the paperwork, research, and then advising you, and obviously they've got to cover that time by charging you. Since I started my law firm, I've had the opportunity of coming across, luckily or unluckily, I'm not sure, but a lot of unique developers who offer their clients high-end residential or land opportunities. Developers that basically have unique propositions to put to people, and these are obviously going to be to your benefit. And that's what we look at in these options. They're unique deals that are generally not available to most people. Obviously, I cannot name individual clients, but just to give you an idea of the kind of developments and the size that we do, I'll give you some examples. Obviously, we do the mums and the dads buying or selling properties, or the first home buyers, or whatever the case may be. But we also do huge developments, whether it's for the developer or sometimes for the purchasers. It depends how the deal goes. So just to give you an idea, we have a development in Werribee, just next to Werribee, 354 lots, vacant land. We've been involved with the planning, doing all the paperwork for the plans of subdivision, registering the subdivision, and then the conveyancing for the developer. Maribyrnong development, we did 250 lots. It was a land and buildings package development. Port Melbourne, 220 lots. Those were apartments that we did. Richmond development, 250 lots, also apartments. St Kilda development, 200 lots. And in Wyndham Waters or Tarneet, 100 lots of vacant land. So we've done very big developments over the years, and it's all about systems and processes on being able to handle these big developments, and obviously being able to still represent each client on an individual basis. Having been involved in these kind of developments over the years, obviously we've become very specialized, or we have the experience of the off-the-plan contract. And I would have to say that over the years we've developed a lot of the clauses and conditions in the standard off-the-plan contracts, which I have to say a lot of the other firms, including the big law firms, are now using as their standard contract. So we've developed a lot of the paperwork that is in use today. And just a point on that, I should also add that the actual option to purchase agreement that you'll eventually be looking at, before it actually became a public document for clients to actually look at, I was asked to comment on the original draft documentation, to put in my suggestions from a purchaser's perspective. And those suggestions and comments were looked at by obviously the vendor solicitors, and also the vendor, I know, took it to one of the senior barristers in Melbourne, who has actually looked after a lot of the ATO and State Revenue Office cases. So a very senior barrister who gave the okay to that documentation. But the point I wanted to make on that is, obviously I've had an input from the start, which is something that is unusual. It's not usual for a purchaser solicitor to have an input into the documentation before the document is actually signed. All right, so to get into the actual option to purchase agreement, I'm not going to go into a great deal of detail because you'd all probably fall asleep if I did that, and we don't have a lot of time. So I just want to give a general brief or a general understanding on what an option is, etc., etc. The first thing I want to say about it is that I'm actually going to start at the end. I'm not going to start at the beginning. So I'm not actually going to start at the beginning with the option. I'm going to start at the end about what you actually are getting the option to buy. And basically what you are getting an option to buy is to enter into an off-the-plan contract of sale. That's what you actually are getting. That's the end of the line. The option is just something that gets you to enter into the contract of sale down the track. And it's an off-the-plan contract of sale. Now, what you're buying ultimately then is a lot of a plan of subdivision, which is a proposed plan of subdivision, and obviously that's what the off-the-plan contract of sale is. But having said that, I just want to explain what a plan of subdivision is. I know there's a lot of people who understand what it is, but sometimes people just need a short reminder or an understanding of what it is, and it's relatively simple. And maybe I can use this.
Use black.
Black, yeah, what color is best?
Yeah, black.
Okay. Right, I don't want to fall off the back. Okay, so basically, I'm sure you can all see that. That's your big piece of land. That's your big lot that the developer owns, and that piece of land is registered on the certificate of title in the developer's name. Is that all right?
Yeah, I don't want you to fall off.
No, it's all right. I'm insured. All right. So the developer owns that piece of land, and he or she wants to develop it into a whole lot of lots so they can sell it to individuals such as yourselves. So what they do is they engage the services of a quantity surveyor, or a surveyor I should say, and the surveyor then comes along and looks at the piece of land and draws a plan, a proposed plan of subdivision. And basically what they do, and I'm not going to do it in any fancy order, but you basically have this big piece of land being divided into small lots. Lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc., etc. And what happens is they take that proposed plan of subdivision to the council and they say, this is what we want to do, and the council will eventually say, yes, okay, we'll give you a planning approval, a planning permit to do the plan of subdivision. And attached to that planning approval will be a whole lot of terms and conditions. For example, the developer would have to put in the infrastructure, the roads, the electricity, the water, the sewerage, drainage, all that kind of stuff. And all of that are terms and conditions on that proposed plan of subdivision. What happens then is obviously the developers then got to go in, put in that infrastructure, put in all the pipes, etc., and at the end of the day comply with all those requirements and all the others that the council have actually asked them to do. And when the developer has done that, they go back to the council, and the council says, yes, that's fine. And they certify the plan of subdivision from the council's perspective. The developer can then take that plan of subdivision to the land titles office and have it registered by the land titles office. And at that point what happens, if I can just get that out again, is that this original certificate of title gets cancelled. And the land titles office will issue a certificate of title for each one of the lots, for lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. And what that means is the developer can now actually sell you that lot, can pass the ownership to you because you have a certificate of title for that individual lot. They couldn't do it before because it was only on one title. So that, in summary, is pretty much the easy or the simple guide to what a plan of subdivision is in what, 2 or 3 minutes. So that's the end point. What you're buying is that lot on a plan of subdivision down the track. That's the end point. The beginning point is obviously where we are now, that you're going to enter into an option to purchase agreement. And basically, an option is really a unique mechanism that allows you to secure the land today at today's prices without any holding costs. So you don't have to pay the council rates, you don't have to pay the land tax, the mortgage, whatever other costs there are associated with that land, you don't have to pay that now. But you're securing the land today on today's prices. We all know what an option is, but in simple English, it's the right that somebody gives you to buy something at an agreed price and on certain terms and conditions. And there's all different kinds of options. There's call options, put options, a whole lot of funny terminology that's around. But in this situation, it's purely an option to purchase. You are granted a simple option to purchase something at an agreed price and on agreed terms and conditions. Now, what triggers the option? You are given the option today because you've entered into that contract, but what actually triggers the option is down the track, the planning approval for that plan of subdivision. So when the developer gets its planning approval for the plan of subdivision, that's what triggers your option, and you have then 21 days in which to exercise your option, okay? And by exercise the option, I mean you signing the contract of sale, the off-the-plan contract of sale to buy that lot from the developer. Okay, so just understand the exercise of the option. You've got 21 days to exercise the option, and the way you do that is you provide a signed contract of sale to the developer with the 10% deposit, and at that point in time you are on an off-the-plan contract of sale, which is governed by the Sale of Land Act. It's a very different kind of contract to the option agreement, which is not governed by the Sale of Land Act. If you don't exercise your option, I should say at that point in time, you're given 21 days, but if you choose not to exercise your option, you don't have to enter into the contract of sale. The ramification of not exercising your option is that you lose your option fee that you pay at the beginning now to get into this deal. So you do have the option. You don't have to exercise it at that stage.
Can I just get you to add there that normally the developer in a normal scenario can force you to purchase because it's a put and call option. This is only a call option. So could you expand on that a little bit, how this is different to what most people would know about in terms of property options?
Yeah. The option that you have is, at this point in time, is totally it's under your control. You, as I said, you don't have to. There's no call and put situation. There's no situation where if you don't exercise your option, they can call or put it to you, whichever way around you want to use the option terminology. In simple English language, you have the opportunity to decide whether you are going to exercise that option or not. And if you choose not to, that's the end of the deal completely. They cannot force you to enter into the deal. So there's no call and put situation where you have a period of time to exercise your option, and if you don't, the developer then has an opportunity to do that. It's purely at your option whether you want to exercise it or not.
So you're in control, not the developer.
Yes, that's correct. The other thing that is good about an option agreement is that, remember, there's no requirement for this, but in this situation, the option to purchase agreement has the contract of sale, the off-the-plan contract of sale attached at the back of it. So the actual option to purchase agreement is only a few pages, I'm not sure, 5 or 10 pages. But the contract of sale is that thick. It's an off-the-plan contract of sale. And the reason why you have that contract of sale attached to the option agreement is primarily for certainty. You know today when you enter into this agreement which lot you're buying, how big it is, what it's going to cost you, the terms and conditions of your purchase, which are on an off-the-plan contract, which are reasonably standard, and you have certainty. There's no way that the developer can come back in 5 or 7 years or whatever and say, look, property prices have gone up, we're going to put the price up. You're going to pay an extra $50,000 or $100,000. They cannot do that because they tied in on today's prices. So that it's certain. It allows you to dictate what the price is today rather than in 5 or 10 years.
So Colin, can I just clarify on that? So even if the market rises or their costs go up, your price is fixed?
Yes, you have a contract, and that contract is fixed at the price that you sign on the option to purchase now. When you when you exercise your option in 7 or 8 or 10 years, whatever the time frame is, you enter into a contract of sale that is the same as the contract of sale that is attached to the option to purchase. And it has the purchase price in it, it has everything in it, so it's all agreed up front right now, so there's no way that you can dispute that, or they can dispute the price at a later stage and say, no, look, it was unfair, it should be another $100,000. It's tied into the contract right now today. Okay. I just wanted to comment on a few aspects of the option agreement, which I think are important for you to know, and these are, without going into any detail again. The first is the nomination clause. The name that you sign up today, whatever it is, John Smith, is not necessarily the name that you will ultimately own the property in. It allows you to nominate an alternative purchaser at a later stage. And the reason why we do this is because people want to either buy properties in their own name, or they want to use a trust structure, or they want to use a self-managed super fund. And today you might not have those structures in place, which means you've got to obviously attend to that in the next few months, but you want to secure your lot right away. So the contract, the option to purchase, allows you to put your name in today and to put the trustee of a trust or super fund in at a later stage. I just want to make a very general point, because there's a little bit of a misunderstanding when it comes to trusts and super funds. Remember that a trust in itself, or a super fund in itself, is not a legal person. We are all legal people. We can be sued, we can sue people. We are legal people, the same as a corporation. A PTY limited company is a person. We can all enter into contracts, and as I said, we can sue and be sued. That is what a legal person is, whereas a trust or a super fund is not in itself a legal person. In order for it to conduct business, it needs a trustee. So the trustee is the person who does business for that trust or super fund. which means that either yourself as an individual or partners can be the trustee of a trust or a super fund, or you create a corporate trustee, a PTY limited trustee. But the land will not be registered in the name of that trust or that super fund. It will be registered in the name of the trustee. So if John Smith is the trustee of the Smith Family Trust or the Smith Super Fund, it will be registered in the name of John Smith, and there will be no reference to the trust. The trust and all its paperwork, etc., are all done in the background by accountants and bookkeepers, etc. That's where all the records of the trust are actually, and the financials are kept. But on the public sees only John Smith's name as the registered owner. So remember, the name you put in today, you can still nominate an alternative purchaser or the trustee of your trust at a later stage. The option fee. In order to get into this option to purchase, you have to pay an option fee. There has to be some kind of consideration for the vendor, the developer, giving you the right to acquire and secure this land at today's prices. And that's what the option fee is all about. The option fee is payable in installments, and I'm sure that the consultants and everyone will tell you about that. But once the option fee is paid, it becomes the sole property of the vendor. I should have put this in the beginning. When you sign the option to purchase, there is actually a cooling off period. Usually a cooling off period on most contracts for sale of land is 3 days, 3 business days. That's what usual practice is. In this situation, the cooling off period is a little bit longer. It's 5 business days. And that's a great help. It gives you a little bit more time to look over the contract, to speak to me, to do your due diligence and make up your mind. To me, that shows a little bit more confidence in the product that this vendor is selling or that 21st Century is promoting to you, because they're giving you more chance to pull out of the contract, and that's obviously to your benefit. So it's a positive as far as I'm concerned. The actual term of the option, remember the option to purchase agreement is not the contract of sale. The term of the option is 10 years, okay? Once again, at the end of 10 years, it is your decision whether you want to exercise the right to extend that term for another period of 5 years. It's your right, it's your decision to do that. You don't have to, but if you do, it will be extended for a period of time. Which brings me, which is all linked here, the option fee. It is refundable at different times. There's usually 3 times in this whole process when the option fee is refundable. The first one is at the end of the term, that 10-year period. If that 10-year period comes to an end and you have not extended for the extra 5 years, the option fee is refundable. The developer must give it back to you. I should also add that that's obviously conditional upon the developer not having received their planning approval within that 10-year period. Because obviously, if they come to the end of the 10-year, they haven't got their planning approval, you don't have to extend, and they must refund the money. If they had their planning approval, they would have triggered the option for you to exercise, to enter into the contract of sale. So that's the first time that the refund of the option fee can be applicable. The second is, in the first 2 years of the option period, the developer has the right to pull out of the deal and refund your money. The third is the developer has the right to cancel the option and refund you the money if they can't get their planning approval, or if the planning approval is given but that the terms and conditions of that planning is so onerous that they don't feel that it's a viable proposition to proceed. Now, that's very similar to an off-the-plan contract of sale, because in an off-the-plan contract of sale, the developer always has the right to pull out if they feel that the planning situation or the council's requirements are just too onerous or ridiculous to make it viable. So those are the 3 situations that allow the refund of the option fee. The option to purchase also allows a certain protection that you people have, and that is to lodge a caveat. Okay? Now, I'm sure a lot of you will know what a caveat is, but basically what a caveat is it is a document that we lodge, or I would lodge if you're my client, at the Land Titles Office, which gets registered on the certificate of title. So it's a notice to the whole world that you have an interest in that land. Nobody, the developer cannot use that certificate of title, cannot sell the land, cannot dispose of the property, cannot mortgage it without coming to you and saying, do you consent, or will you please remove your caveat before we can deal with that land? So the land is held pretty much securely under that caveat, and it prevents them dealing with the land. Now that caveat can only be lodged if the developer is in default and the developer has not rectified their default. At that point, you're entitled to go and put a caveat under the option to purchase agreement, which is a protection that is not afforded to you under an off-the-plan contract of sale. Under an off-the-plan contract of sale, you are not allowed to put a caveat on the property until you settle the land. And there's no use putting one then because you're the owner. So it is a benefit that you have under the option to purchase agreement. Then I just wanted to say that as part of the process, when consultants will, I'm assuming this is part of the process, when the consultants show you the paperwork and the documentation, I have prepared a commentary. I think it's an 8 or a 9-page commentary, which goes into a little bit more detail than what I've stood up here today and said, but it gives a little bit more insight into what a plan of subdivision, the terms and conditions of this contract, etc., etc. And so you will be given that commentary, and I would strongly recommend that you read it in conjunction with any of the paperwork that you ultimately get when you sign it up, because it will answer some of the questions that you may or may not have. It gives a little bit more in-depth commentary than I'm obviously time constraints allowed, and once again you'd also be falling asleep if I went into that detail. So basically the way in which it happens, and subject to the way in which these guys are running their show today, is that you would be given ultimately an option to purchase agreement, which you would obviously sign, and part of that process is paying the initial installment of the option fee. At that point, what happens, you obviously have the cooling off period, but that contract or that option to purchase gets taken to the developer, to the vendor, for countersigning. And when that happens and the developer has actually countersigned, you have a valid and binding contract. Okay? What happens then is I get your copy of the documentation, the vendor obviously gets their copy, and we will then obviously send out a reporting letter to those people who've engaged my firm, and together with that reporting letter, we also send out a copy of all the documents, or if we've got an extra original set, we send you out an original copy as well. But that's really the process from here, subject to changes of how 21st Century is going to be dealing with it. But that's the process. And then obviously then we sit back and wait for the developer to go ahead and do all their planning and approval and everything that they have to do. So that in a nutshell is really my short story on the option to purchase agreement and the associated contract of sale. I'm happy to answer some of your questions or take a few questions from the audience if you want.
First.
Yes, I'm sure. You want to get a word in first.
Okay. First of all, Colin, I know you've seen lots of other developments all around Melbourne over a long period of time. These take a long time, and some people here who have bought a property that's already built or an off the plan that takes 1 year, they're not used to the time frames. They probably just want a bit of certainty in some of your experiences to, you know, some of these areas around Melbourne that used to be paddocks. It took a long time for urban sprawl to hit these areas, and it took a while for it to go through this process. And this land is already in the designated area that council has determined, and it's already zoned correctly. Can you just talk about the significance of that?
Yes. Well, first of all, I think, if I didn't mention this earlier, this option to purchase process is a technique that has really been used for a long time. There's nothing new about options, but it's been used for a long period of time by the big land development companies to be able to secure huge tracts of land on the outskirts of cities long before that those